We're here to talk about the status of the Green Lantern HBOMax TV series and how that affects the comic book market. What books to look for next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. Before we get started, please subscribe to the channel, hit like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate it. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at Bronzeville_comics. I'm on Whatnot, and I do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Also, Bronzeville_comics over on Whatnot. You can find my eBay store in the description below. So, we're going to get started. We're going to talk about the Green Lantern HBO Max TV series. And there's some news, which isn't the most promising news we've heard about the show. Well, when HBO Max was launched and took in the properties that had been on the DC Universe app, namely Titans and Doom Patrol at the time, and the other properties that were being developed, like the Young Justice animated series as well as the Harley Quinn animated series, they announced two series, Strange Adventures, which we really haven't heard anything much about since, and that does allow the opportunity for a lot of speculation in that regard, because it could be an anthology including some really obscure DC characters, some that are fairly well known, but we haven't seen on screen. And also, the tentpole of it was Green Lantern. Just a few weeks ago, at the end of May, Jeremy Irvine, who has already been cast in the role of Alan Scott in the Green Lantern show, said that there's no firm production date. They haven't started filming. He hasn't been contacted. He knows it's going to take a while to do a costume fitting and get everything ready. He says he's bigger now than he was when he cast. He's ready to go. Now, they've announced two major castings for the series. Jeremy Irvine as Alan Scott and Finn Wittrock as Guy Gardner. There's also been a rumor that Tobias Menzies has been cast, but that role is undisclosed, and actually the casting hasn't been confirmed. One of the executive producers of the show, Seth Grahame-Smith, said back in October that the show was going to be gigantic and indicated that they needed time to set it up. Now, it's unclear as when production is going to start, but I wanted to talk about the characters that either have been confirmed or rumored to be Green Lanterns in this series. Now, interestingly, two characters that have not been mentioned for the series are Hal Jordan and John Stewart, probably the two most prominent Green Lanterns in public consciousness. Hal Jordan, of course, was portrayed by Ryan Reynolds in the infamous movie that came out several years ago, and I am supposing that Warner Brothers Discovery and the DC Extended Universe kind of wants to forget about that. John Stewart is known to a lot of non-comic reading fans because he was the Green Lantern in the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited animated series. Hal Jordan did have his own animated series. But it seems as though the TV show is going to delve into kind of the secondary Green Lantern characters, even the tertiary ones, more of a Green Lantern core, whereas my feeling in that regard is that they're saving Hal Jordan and John Stewart for a feature film, not for an HBO Max series. So let's dig into it. So the two castings that we do know about. We'll start with the first Green Lantern, and that's Alan Scott. As I said, Jeremy Irvine has been cast to portray Alan Scott. So if you want to look at his first appearance, that's All American Comics, number 16 back in 1940, and it probably costs more than your house. There are only 29 copies of this book on the census, and the highest of those is a 9.4. The next highest is an 8.0. All the other copies are less than 8.0s, and it is, much like books of the late 30s and 1940, incredibly difficult to find. And it was right in the midst of a run of an anthology series, unlike, Superman in Action 1 or even Flash Comics #1, Wonder Woman in Sensation #1, it wasn't a #1 issue that a lot of the very early Golden Age heroes appeared in, other than Batman. So it's maybe a little bit harder to find because of that. I mean, it wasn't like in the 40s people were collecting runs of comic books. They were just buying them to read, and the ones that survived have done so miraculously. And like we said, Blue Label, there are only 29 on the census, and that's considering there were hundreds of thousands of books published in the 1940s. So if you're looking for something a little more affordable, well, his first Silver Age appearance is in Flash 129 as a member of the Justice Society of America. He appears with several other JSA members. Kind of his first in-action appearance is in Showcase 55, which is a title that headlines Dr. Fate and Hourman. Solomon Grundy appears in it, who's a main Green Lantern villain from the Golden Age. And Green Lantern comes at the end of that story. The big Green Lantern key, when he first crosses over with Hal Jordan, is in Green Lantern #40. And if you're looking for a modern key, it's Earth 2 #1. When DC did the New 52, they took the Justice Society characters, who by that time had been around for over 70 years, and rebooted them as current heroes on a different Earth, Earth 2. And the way they redefined Alan Scott was that he was a homosexual man, and I believe that is how he will be portrayed in the HBOMax series. So I think they're going to draw a lot of story elements from that. They're not going to draw too many story elements from All-American 16. If you read the early adventures of Green Lantern, where the Hal Jordan Green Lantern had a weakness to yellow, the Alan Scott Green Lantern had a weakness to wood, and in the early stories he could just kind of walk through walls. And so what would invariably happen, he'd be fighting, some gang members, and either a 2x4 or a baseball bat, to the back of the head would do him in for a while. And he really didn't fight any supervillains until a little bit later in his run. Now, there are, both in the Silver Age and in the Golden Age, plenty of Green Lantern villains, some who we've already seen on screen, specifically in the Stargirl series. Solomon Grundy, we talked about. The Icicle is another Green Lantern villain. So those are the keys for Alan Scott. Let's move ahead. Now, one of the interesting things about Guy Gardner, who became popular in the 1980s when he was a member of the Justice League, he is going to be portrayed by Finn Wittrock. That casting has been announced for the HBO series. His first appearance is in Green Lantern #59. In the Silver Age, which is a fairly pricey book. It's probably, even in lower grade, $200 to $300, or mid-grade, $200 to $300 for a raw book. Interestingly, though, it's not in continuity. It's sort of an imaginary story where Hal Jordan goes to the Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're like, basically, well, let's look what would have happened if Abin Sur had not contacted you when he was crashing on Earth. And they go through this whole scenario where he would have contacted Guy Gardner if he had crashed on the eastern coast of the United States, and Guy Gardner would have become Green Lantern, but eventually he would have been defeated and died and had to hand his ring over to Hal Jordan anyway. So this is all kind of playing on this kind of mysterious TV screen that the Guardians of the Universe have. And at the end of the story, Hal says, "Can I go meet this guy?" So he goes and he meets Guy Gardner, and just Guy Gardner never knew that he could have been Green Lantern. So he isn't really Green Lantern in Green Lantern 59. Now, they kind of overlook that in Green Lantern 87, which is his second appearance, which more importantly is the first appearance of John Stewart, where he's laid up, and if Hal Jordan's out of commission and Guy Gardner's out of commission, then John Stewart's kind of third in line. It isn't until Green Lantern 116 that he gets his first actual appearance as Green Lantern in continuity. And that's probably the second most valuable book of Guy Gardner. Another character that they have confirmed is going to be in the show is Jessica Cruz. Now, Jessica Cruz had 2 cameos prior to her first appearance. She had a cameo in Green Lantern #20. This is a 2013 book. And her second cameo was in Justice League 30, 10 months later, because remember, at that time, this was during the New 52, all the titles are kind of running in lockstep. They all started at number 1 at the same time. The first full appearance of Jessica Cruz is in Justice League 31, which is about a $40 or $50 book raw and high grade, and about a $250 book in a 9.8. There's also a variant cover of this, which is a Mike Allred Batman 66 cover, and it's a 1 in 25. It's hard to find. There's only been one sale, according to cover price, for 9.8, and that's $300. Raw books kind of go in the 150 or more range. Those are the keys for Jessica Cruz. The next Green Lantern to come along after Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, John Stewart was Kyle Rayner. And he kind of has a triumvirate of first appearances, almost similar to Silver Surfer. And I say that only because of the issue numbers. It's in Green Lantern Volume 3, numbers 48, which is first appearance of Kyle Rayner. Number 50 is where he becomes Green Lantern. And number 51 is his first cover appearance. Those are pretty much the keys for him. Now, another character that has been confirmed is Simon Baz. His first appearance was in Free Comic Book Day, the New 52, number 1. So that's a little bit harder of a book to find because it was a Free Comic Book Day. And unlike Free Comic Book Today, where everybody gets multiple copies and saves them, back then everybody got a copy, read it, and kind of threw it away. So that one's harder to find. Another character who's been rumored to be in the series, and we did see this character in the infamous Ryan Reynolds movie, is Kilowog. His first appearance is in Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, number 201, which is actually the first issue of that series. It had been Green Lantern up until 200 and then became Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, and they had a whole corps of Green Lanterns. If you do your research and you know anything about Green Lanterns, there are dozens of possible Green Lanterns from all over the universe that they can choose from to put in this story. One of the things that the story is going to be told across different time periods. So it seems as though the Alan Scott stories might take place in the 1940s. The question is, will Alan Scott have any connection to the Justice Society that's going to be appearing in the Black Adam film? The other interesting thing about Green Lantern is that DC's been keeping Green Lantern really under wraps in terms of live action since the Ryan Reynolds film. They have constantly hinted at Green Lantern in the Arrowverse. Even in the most recent season of The Flash, Iris was in Coast City, where she ran into Phantom Girl, who in the comics is in the 31st Century Legion of Superheroes, but here she was in current day. But they kept mentioning Coast City, and they even show the sign, Coast City, and they've done this in Season 1, the home of Ferris Aircraft. Now, those of you who don't know, Carol Ferris is the romantic interest of Green Lantern and becomes Star Sapphire. Her father owned the airplane manufacturing company that Hal Jordan worked for as a test pilot. So she is an important part of the narrative. There were hints that the John Diggle character in the Arrowverse would become a Green Lantern, but they kind of squashed that. And even in the Zack Snyder cut, the Snyder cut of Justice League, there was supposed to be an introduction of John Stewart. It was by a fairly unknown actor, and it was scrapped, and they didn't put it in. But I have to believe that despite the chaos that's going on with DC Warner Discovery right now, that we will see Hal Jordan again, I think, on the big screen, and we're going to see John Stewart on the big screen. Hopefully, probably sometime next year, if they start filming in the next several months, we'll start to see this HBOMax series with Green Lantern, including the characters that I just talked about. In the comments below, let me know what you think, what Green Lantern characters you think will appear in the series, and which ones you would like to see. In the meantime, you can take a look at a couple of other videos that I've done recently. Check those out. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.